Let's face it, sometimes you dedicate a lot of your life to something, a hobby or just something you really enjoy, and eventually you just kind of let it go, whether that be for time commitments, growing up, you get different hobbies. It's always sad to see it go, but usually you have a good reason for it. Before I went to college, for me, that was speedrunning. I used to speedrun every day after I get home from high school or anything. I'd be streaming it constantly. And then when I got to college, I kind of put that on the back burner, didn't really do it at all. It was just kind of a party trick even for other people whenever I'd meet them. And if you say, oh, you're not a real speedrunner, you didn't do it. I was in a GDQ. Were you? And like, stop being a gatekeeper. Recently, I tried to dip my feet back into it by playing Megaman X2 any percent. So this is one of my favorite X games, and I'd always play it a lot as a kid, but like I didn't actually get a very good time. I got a 4110. That's what I had on the online leaderboards when I started, but it's so outdated. It's from 2015 that I couldn't even find the video on Twitch because I apparently deleted it. So I decided I'd take 5 days of dedicating 3 hours each to trying to beat my old record. Day 1. To start off this challenge, I decided to do what got me into speedrunning. Races. Once I enlisted my friend Max to play a game he'd only beaten once in a race against me where I'd probably beaten it 50 to 100 times, we went. Ready, set, go. I'll explain the key points of the run during this race so you have the basics. I'm also going to note that this route is the old route, which I'll be switching to later in the video, but for the most part, a lot of it's the same. There's a pretty simple intro, with the only notable thing being this thing that comes out from the ceiling that I really don't like. We don't like him, alright? Yeah, we don't like him. And then you fight a big man and move on to be able to choose between the 8 Mavericks to take down. The first stage we're going to do is Wire Sponge, because we can get everything and his weapon unlocks a lot of items for us. One of the difficult parts of this stage is this jump right here to get the sub-tank. With the rain pushing you and you have to do an invisible jump, it's really hard to do. So in Mega Man X 1 through 3, you can actually jump on a wall as long as X's hitbox is within 7 pixels of it. So you don't actually have to jump on the wall. So you kind of just have to look how close you are and then jump at the right time. The next big part of it is actually the boss itself. So after you lower the boss down to a certain amount of HP, he'll waste a ton of time doing an electricity animation. You can skip this though. If you wait for him to attach himself to the ceiling and then you do a fast dash shot, you can get him. So let me explain what a dash shot is. For those that don't know the SNES games, there's a difference between this lemon and that lemon. They might look the same, but one does 2 damage and the other one does 1. If X is using his dash speed at the time, he'll do 2 damage instead of 1, so it's actually a really fast way to do damage because the normal lemon shot is what causes the least amount of iframes. Then after that we head to Florida and take on a gator. This stage has an extremely important item. The arm upgrade. This allows you to charge your buster so that you can use a better version of the boss weapons. The stage starts off with a trick where you can use the chain we got from Wire Sponge to get a capsule you would normally need the boots upgrade to get to. After you damage boost to get the heart container, we eventually get to the boss. And this boss is the one I have a vendetta against. It's possible to infinite this man if you have rhythm and kill him in 15 seconds, but unfortunately,
I ain't got rhythm,
which always ends up me wasting time. I generally go for the infinite 2 times and switch over to just shooting him to make it faster. We then move on to Overdrive Ostrich. This stage is probably the closest to an auto-scroller that X2 has, since for a good chunk of the time you're stuck on a bike. This bike section can be difficult though. About midway you have to shoot down a ramp, dash off the ramp to get high enough to continue the level on the bike. And I run into the wall half the time and I legit don't really know how to do it. I still don't. I kind of just hold up, dash right before, and like 50 to 60% of the time it works for me. And there's probably a simple reason, but when I looked it up, I couldn't find anything. So yeah, you know, it's the best I got. To get to the heart tank, your bike has to go on top of spikes, which X can't. So you have to turn your ass around to get the right amount of drift so then X gets the heart tank and then you book your way out. Then we can get the boots upgrade, which will give us an air dash and it'll allow us to do a funny glitch, but we'll talk about that later. We eventually get to the boss, and in this route, you just dash shot him until he's dead. It's pretty simple. Moving on, we have a crab. And then after climbing on a wall to get heart container, we use a glitch that requires the arm and leg upgrades. The neon jump. So the thing with the X2 and 3, X's charge shot, when he has the arm upgrade, the game reads it as having like a flat state for about 1 frame. So there's 1 second where you can hit jump and then X will jump again. So you can actually do this twice. You can do it on the release of the first charge and then the shoot of the second charge, but I really only go for the shoot of the second charge because you can just put your finger on both buttons and go, and then it hits both, and then you jump. Normally to get this you'd have to get Bubbly Carlos's weapon and then use that charged version to then go up, which means you'd have to revisit, or there's a different way you can just like kind of go up a ledge, but I've always used neon jump because I like it's just a cool trick. One of my favorite stages in this game is Flame Stag. And it has a lot of vertical movement, which you normally don't see in most platformers because generally it doesn't feel good. But in a game that has wall jumping and all like platforms are the correct height to be dash jumping over all of them, it feels amazing. Like going up these big shafts and like just being fast and it like feels good. It's really, really rare and it just feels so good. And once you get to the boss, you just kind of like blow bubbles in his face and he's allergic. Yeah. In Morph Moth stage, we get to do our second neon jump of the run and get the heart tank. Then we blow through the floor, get an armor upgrade, then we climb this little section where you have to abuse a little bit of coating. So in the SNES games, if X is ever walking down a slope and he jumps, he actually moves faster and jumps higher than he would if he were normally walking. So because of that, instead of zigging and zagging back and forth to get up the shaft, you can just like go down the slope, jump, and go up. And it just saves some time. Then after a series of hallways, you end up at the boss. And this boss is pretty simple. Charge fire, fire, charge fire, charge fire, wait for him to go up, charge fire, fire, fire. I know I made that sound simple, it's probably not actually that easy for someone that hasn't done it 50 sometimes, but it's, out of all the boss fights, it's one of the most consistent ones. Magnus Centipede stage is really just Metal Gear Solid combined with a crushing simulator. There are both various sections where either yellow beams are trying to hit you to cause enemies to spawn, or big blocks that are trying to crush you. You can do some really, really cool stuff with the crushing blocks though. Bam. But this boss fight has the most RNG in the run. This bug could do one of four things: jump, suck, ninja, or tail attack. If you attack him when he's doing anything other than these, he'll teleport and waste time. And if he does anything except tail attack, you're pretty much wasting your time. There's a quick way to do this, but I sure as heck don't know it yet. If he does suck you and you don't mash out fast enough, he'll take away one X's abilities. First time he takes away your charge, the second your weapons, the third your jump and dash speed, and I have no idea what happens afterwards because I've never had that happen. But then we move on to the last Maverick. Crystal Snail probably has the most aesthetic stage, which is always pretty to look at. You get to get in a mech to cross a gap for a heart container, then using Charge Binner you can actually cause enough lag for the game to actually not trigger this mini boss. It just won't load in the marker for it happening because you're lagging the game enough. This boss is a really fun one though, because if you have his weakness, he'll just pop out of his shell and then just dash towards his shell repeatedly, and you can just keep shooting him. You dash into his shell to like send it up and it just goes flying.
Oh yeah, thought of it.
Yo, let's go!
What?
I got the thing where at the end the shell is bouncing between my head and the wall as he explodes.
Very cool.
We then move on to the Counter Hunter stages where this trio is trying to stop us. The first stage is falling down a large shaft with spikes, followed by climbing with robots to bring the walls closer to get crushed. You can simply take care of these robots by abusing some weapons, for example using the dung to throw at a wall and then it'll go up. Now, this man though, this man is something. To beat him, you simply have to charge up your bubbles and then just kind of like sit in this corner, and you can walk away from the controller for like 80% of the time because there's only a really low chance he's actually going to jump. For the most part, you can just leave it there, just like, I don't know, check your phone. The second stage is a long, windy shaft filled with spikes and enemies. For the most part, it's pretty simple, but there's actually one spot super noticeable. At the end of the shaft, there's a moving platform going horizontally. It's actually possible to dash underneath this, jump, and skip having to wait for it, which will keep you from having to wait for the next elevator that's going up. It's called elevator skip. I've gotten it once in my life after practicing as a kid, and I couldn't get it right now. So rip my 40 seconds. Then you just fight a boss where you stand under an old man, shoot up, and then we're on to the last Counter Hunter. So some of you might be wondering that for an 80% run, we've got a lot of items. In fact, we have all of the items except the 0 parts, but we're going to figure out why later in this stage. This stage has some of the most precise movement in the run. There are enemies absolutely everywhere, and there are points where you have to neon to save time. There's also a branching path. We're going to take the top path by either luring a bat and making a crystal platform, or you can just neon it. After a tricky spike dash, we go down 4 different things and then find a capsule. Just to note, you have to have full HP to see this capsule, but when you go in this capsule, Dr. Light gives you the Shoryuken. This move is executed the same way you would in Street Fighter, and boy, this packs a punch. Let me show you on this boss fight. Yeah, So we're gonna move on to the boss refights and do the same thing. The Shoryuken hits for 8 damage with every frame it's in the hurt box of the enemy's hitbox. For the most part, this just means we one-shot everything because every boss has 32 HP, so it means you pretty much one-shot everything. But now that we're done with the boss rush, we move on to the final stage where we're gonna fight Zero. Since we didn't collect the Zero parts, we have to fight Zero, which generally, if you have the Shoryuken and you're good, you can just do it back and forth and he dies, because the thing is, Zero can actually block the Shoryuken. The most optimal thing you can do is get what they call the Bro Fist, which is where you Shoryuken into the stage, which won't move you backwards, and then you can just get the right spacing to not have him block, because if he blocks it, he's just going to hit you and you're not going to be at full HP, and then you can't use the Shoryuken again. And I didn't have that timing, but then you just hit him with some burners and then he'll fall over. And then we're going to go down the hatch and into Sigma, where he has 2 phases. Wolverine Sigma, who's really fast and hard to hit, can be a challenge. I've always found it hard to find a good way to Shoryuken him if he's not diving on top of you, but you can also do it if he's making orbs. But with that out of the way, we then get to Wire Sigma. Without your Shoryuken, this fight will take you an extra minute just because the amount of health he has, because for the most part, unless you have the one specific angle, it's going to take you 2 Shoryukens period. At the end of the race, I ended with a 45-12, which is roughly 4 minutes slower than what I wanted to beat. But it's good to have a good basis to know we got there. We then watched Max and I looked more at my run to see what I did wrong, and I mentally prepared for the next day. On day 2, it was pretty much watch the world record and practice day. Stage by stage, I would watch what the world record's doing and then try to copy that movement. There are a good chunk of stages which I would be completely normal with because it was what I was already doing because I already practiced it before, but there was also some new tech, and then we also moved to the stag third route. And the reason you do stag third is because the charged stag is a dash, and if you have that earlier in the game, you can go faster. And one of the hardest parts about this day was actually learning the stag fight. When you fight him on this route, you don't have bubbles. It does not go super fast, but you can make it go fast with what they call the Buster Duel. And the basis of the Buster Duel is only hitting him when he hits you. But you might say that's kind of weird, but then you're actually on the wall. So when X is on the wall, he shoots faster than if he's not on the wall. So you really just want to take damage while you're holding the wall, which will make you still keep clinging to the wall, and then shoot every time as you go up with him. And you're gonna take a lot of damage, which means you need to be really, really careful. And then the rest of this day was trying to learn the Magna Centipede boss fight. Remember how I mentioned that this was the most RNG boss? Well, here, let me show you the world record and how they fight the boss, because they get him to continuously do the tail attack and then jump on the wall at the correct time to then fall off the wall at the correct time, which will get his tail stuck, and then you jump and use the wire, and then he'll be stuck in that animation so you can keep wailing on him so he won't ever teleport. And now a reminder, this is what it looks like for me, which is, yeah, it's slow. That's where I stopped, hoping that in the coming 3 days, it would give me the edge that I needed. Day 3. We started this day off with a run, giving me a PB of 44.56, which isn't much faster, but hey, I had some unfortunate deaths, and I couldn't Shoryuken either of the Sigma faces, so I knew there was a lot of time to make up. We then went back and learned the overall movement for the rest of the run, and then we did one more run, which I got a 43.58, which is almost a minute faster. And then Day 4. It was time to do runs. With my multiple days of practice under my belt, I wanted to get runs done as soon as possible to hopefully PB. And the best run I got for that day was a 42.41, which was another minute faster, and I was inching towards my original PB. Second by second, I could see the timer going down and how much I wanted it to hit even further below. With this, I felt some fear rising up within me, wondering what would happen if I couldn't complete this challenge. How would I feel? Would I feel like I could never get back into it? Was I too old? Was I set on a course of things I could do already? Was I impossible to go back? Am I just that afraid of failure? And these thoughts would bother me throughout the night as I mentally prepared for Day 5. Day 5 started on Friday, March 3rd, and I'd cleared my schedule for the whole day so I could put as much time in as possible, even past that 3 hours that I set for every day. I don't want this experiment to end in failure. I want to prove I didn't peak in high school. I want to show not only other people, but myself that I can learn and act on these things that I learn. I want to prove it's okay to go back to new hobbies for myself, because sometimes you're scared of going back because you're like, oh, I won't be as good as I used to be. Or maybe that's just me. So we start the day with 3 whole resets. 2 to that little enemy I really hate in the intro. 1 to not being able to do a trick and flame stag, and I was already behind and my mental was kind of like shot. And then we started the next run, which was run 17. And I'm actually just gonna let the commentary take for the rest of this video. Oh, I was so close! Oh, you see that? That would have been the big gold split. I still think that might be a gold split. Just the stage is perfect. He's gonna dash, looks like. Stay up. Alright, honestly, pretty decent RNG on the whole topside part. Once again, without going for the funny stuff. Honestly, not the worst. Could have been a lot worse. 50 seconds ahead right now. He gave me what I needed, I just messed it up. Okay, we're gonna lose a little bit of time. Probably 5-6 seconds, based off what I remember about my previous one. Cool. One minute ahead, alright. We're saving time. 4-second gold split, let's go. Okay, I blundered that, but it wasn't in my PB, and I've never gotten it before, so, you know, no need to worry about it. I need to focus on the boss fight. Now, all things considered, it's probably gonna save time. Okay. That was like a 10-second gold split. Gold. Okay, honestly, that's why I didn't last. That's okay. I think we're still gonna be ahead. Yeah, I think we're... I don't think we lost any time. Is that the right spot? I think I might be too far. We're like mostly Brofist. Oh! No fucking way. I didn't peak in high school. Oh, mine's 8 from 94 to 89. I don't even care, man. I don't even care. I just needed one run where everything went right? It's been so long since I've like felt this in speedrunning. This is wild. Man, so that's like a minute 30 faster than my original PB. I'm literally sweating right now. God, I'm gonna go take a shower.